Hi everyone, Sandy here for Country Craft Creations. Welcome to my Christmas in July tutorial video where I'm going to show you how to make a cute triangle Christmas tree gift box. You can make several of these real quickly and they're a lot of fun to make. I'm going to try something different in this video. I'm going to add in pause breaks occasionally where you will have instructions on the measurements you need to cut or what you need to do to catch up, and I'll have several of these throughout the video so that you can work along with the video and create your project for the challenge for the Country Craft Creations Christmas in July crop. To create one of these little triangle tree boxes that opens and you can put candies or small gifts inside, I've decorated with buttons. I will be using Country Craft Creations Craft Artisan cardstock. You need 2 sheets. And I will also be using the 12 by 12 Jingle Authentiques Jingle Collection. And you need at least 3 sheets of different pattern paper. You might want to select 4 for contrast if you want. It just depends on what I decide to do with the box that I'm going to be making this time. And then you also will want, if you have it, either stickers or like these cardstock stickers or punch outs. And I selected this piece of authentic contrasting cardstock, but I may or may not use it for this particular one on this video, but I did use it for one of the others. You also will want some ribbons, some different Christmas ribbons, maybe some button twine. And from your stash, check your stash from last year or just different buttons that you might have on hand. You're also going to want to use your art glitter glue that you can order from countrycraftcreations.com. And then your tools, of course, scissors. I use a stylus for scoring, your scoreboard, bone folder, ruler, pencil, and also some ink. I'm using Prima's ink in the sepia color to ink the edges of my papers. That is optional. So let's get started on this. The first thing we're going to do is cut the cardstock. And I have already cut mine down. These are 2.5 inches wide by 12 inches long. I have 3 of these, and then I'm going to cut these other 2 down to smaller pieces so that I can create the triangle shape. I will give you the cutting measurements in the next little breakout where you will pause the video and you can jot down all the different measurements that I'm cutting here. Take a pencil and a ruler and mark a line 1/8 inch from the one edge of each of the 12-inch pieces. This is a placement guide. So just draw a line right across the bottom on just one end at 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And then you're going to take your glue and you're going to glue the shorter pieces onto these longer ones. So we have 2 continuous pieces. One will be 17.5 inches total and the other will be 18 inches total. So just a thin line of the art glitter glue. And line these up, the shorter pieces onto the 12-inch pieces along the line that you just drew, and make sure that they're on straight. And then you will also want to burnish those down really well to make sure that they're stuck together good. You don't want them coming apart. Grab your scoreboard and put one of your long pieces in at the 2.5 inch side, and you're going to score a 1/2 inch all the way down the length of this piece. And your scoreboard's not long enough, so you score as far as you can and then slide it up and score a 1/2 inch the rest of the way. Do this on both pieces. So you want the 1/2 inch the entire length on one side only. Next, you're going to score the long side at a 1/2 inch. And if you're working on the 7.5 inch piece, you're going to score it 6 3/4, and then turn it and score at 4 1/4. Next, take your 18 inch long piece and score at a 1/2 inch, 7 inches, turn it and score at 4 1/2. And again, in just a few minutes, I will have the pause break, where I will give the measurements again and the score marks for you. Take your scissors and cut out the little square and cut at an angle to miter that little corner. This will make a tab for you. And also angle cut each end of this tab. And then at the fold line, you need to cut angle cuts to miter this towards the fold line. Stop at the 1/2 inch line. Do not cut into it. Don't cut the seam line. Only cut the fold lines that you scored. And you will do this on both pieces. Next, you need to decide what pattern papers you want to use for the sides of your box on the outside and also in the inside. So we're going to be patterning these sides before we actually assemble anything. So go ahead and select those papers. I have cut all the papers for the sides of my box, and I am inking the edges. I gave the measurements in the last breakout, so you need to check that. Next, fold and burnish all your score lines. And then you will glue the pattern papers to each side of the sections. Now, I did make a minor goof up here on the first one that I did. On the inside, you do not glue the pattern paper to the shortest piece. I will show you later what I did. I corrected mine, I fixed it, but on the second one I did it correct. So make sure that you do not pattern the one piece there on the inside. This is the outside, so this one's okay. So you go ahead and pattern all three on the outside, turn it over, and repeat for the inside. And this is where you do not glue this pattern piece in yet. I'm gluing it in. I made a mistake, and so I had to glue another one in after it was assembled. So do not glue this short pattern paper on this short piece just yet. And also when you're gluing, make sure that you're not gluing over your fold lines. Once you've attached the papers to your both sides of your one section, of your one triangle section, burnish all the fold lines really well. Use your bone folder to make sure that all the folds are burnished really good so that it folds up tightly. And then you will apply glue to the 1/2 inch tab here, and attach it to the inside of the triangle piece. Make sure you line it up straight, and make sure you're lining up along the fold line of the tab and along the straight line of the smaller section of this triangle piece. Hold it, make sure the glue dries before you let go. So this creates one of your triangle pieces, so you'll do the exact same thing for the next one. And I did cut a new piece of pattern paper to fix my mistake, because you can see the tab on the inside. So that's why you don't want to pattern this until you've assembled it. So I'm just going to slide this in and cover that up so that it has all finished all the way across. Next, we're going to glue the hinges together at each point on the back side of the triangle. And just make sure that your miter cuts, that none of it sticks over the side. So you might need to take your scissors and trim a little bit more. And take your glue and then hold it in place and burnish it on the inside with your finger and a little bit with your bone folder. You want to make sure that these 3 corners stick down really good, because this is where we're going to be putting the front of our triangle piece to make our box. So again, repeat for the other triangle section, and remember to not pattern that short section on the inside until you've assembled the triangle. And it's a good idea to mark it with an X in pencil, the section that's not to be patterned. That's what I did this time, to make sure that I did not pattern it until I had assembled the triangle. To create the triangle shapes for the lid and the base of the box, you need to cut 2 pieces of cardstock 5½ inches wide by 6 3/4 inches tall. Then you take your ruler and a pencil, and on one of the 5½ inch sides, put a dot, mark the center at 2 3/4 inches on both pieces. So just make one little mark there, a little short line or a dot. So you want to make sure that it's 2 3/4 inches on each side of your mark. And do that on both of them. Then take your piece to your trimmer and line up on the cut line the mark and one of the points at the bottom, the opposite end. So line those up, hold it down tight, and then cut a line. Then turn it, line up that bottom corner and the line. Here's the line on where my finger is on the right hand, and then cut another line. That gives you your triangle shape, and this will fit onto your box. So cut the other one the same way. Just make sure you put your pencil mark there in the cut line, and then line up the tip of the opposite end, the corner, and cut. And then I just turn it over so it's easier to see, and line up that corner with the mark and get that triangle. And they should fit pretty closely to the same. Next, select the paper that you want to use for patterning the top of the lid and the bottom of the lid on the outside. So I want you to cut two pieces that are 5 3/8 inches wide by 6 5/8 inches tall. So if you're using a directional pattern like I am with these little words, you need to make sure you're cutting it the right direction. So it's 5 3/8 inches wide by 6 5/8 inches tall. To get your triangle shape, we're going to do the same thing that we did for the cardstock pieces. I'm just double checking to make sure that these are actually tall enough. So you need to mark the center of the 5 3/8 inch side. So half of 5 3/8, I'm getting my ruler here. I'm not that great with fractions, so I know we're getting into it, the 16ths. So it should be, my calculations are right, 2 11/16 is where you mark the center. So I'm looking it over, 2 11/16. You might want to double check that and make sure that I'm right on that. So I'm just counting them out and putting that mark there. So you mark these the same way. You mark the center, and then you line them up on your trimmer, and you cut your triangle shapes. Once you've cut out your two triangle shapes, I want you to be sure and save those little 4 leftover pieces there you see that I have laying on my table. I'm putting glue on the back side of the pattern triangle, and I'm going to put one to the front side of one triangle, and then I'll put the other one on the front side of the other triangle. I'm going to use these scraps to save on paper. I'm going to use these scraps to pattern the back side of these triangles, because once you put them on the box, you're only going to see the outer edges, and I want to cover it solid to give it to make it more stable, a more stable lid, but I don't want to use a solid piece of my pattern paper. I want to be conservative with that. So here I'm gluing the two scraps, triangle scraps, onto the back side. So you just line them up, and the wording is going to be upside down, and I'm okay with that because, like I said, you're only going to see a very narrow margin of it on the edge once this is attached to the lid, and then we will pattern the inside of the box lid and the base with a different pattern paper over the top of this. So this is just to add extra thickness by adding this pattern paper onto the cardstock to make the lid a little bit more sturdy. I'm just erasing any of the pencil marks that might still be on the pattern paper. And now I'm ready to attach these onto the triangle shapes, the sides of the box. So as you see, they will fit on there. It's important that you make sure you attach it so that the bottom is flush. You want your box to be able to stand up like a tree. So you line it up and attach down onto the paper pieced section. So apply glue to all of the hinges here on the back side of your triangle shaped box. And then carefully place it down. You need to make sure that you're leaving the same amount of overhang on the right and the left, and make sure that the bottom of the box is flush with the bottom of the triangle shape that you just patterned. And then look at the top pieces to make sure it's lining up at the top, and burnish in here with your fingers. So I'm just checking to make sure I have about this equal amount of overhang on both sides, and I'm using my bone folder to burnish there on the inside, and we'll let this dry. And this box section is complete, so you will do the same for the other side. As you see, you can just see a little bit of that pattern on the sides, and we'll put pattern paper on the inside to cover up the hinges there. Okay, so go ahead and repeat for your other side, and I will have a pause break after I put this one on so that you can catch up. So our box base and lid are assembled, and I'm just burnishing to make sure that everything's stuck down really good here. Finishing up on this last one. And once you let them dry, then you can fit them together. You will have one that fits inside, the base will fit inside of the lid. So they should nest together just like that. So they fit together pretty good, and then we're going to pattern the inside of that next. So here's the pause video for the instructions that I just did. To pattern the inside of the lid and the box base, select the paper that you want to use on the inside, and you need two pieces that are cut to 4 1/4 inches wide by 6 inches tall. And again, we're going to cut the triangle the same way that we did before. So take a pencil, and on your 4 1/4 inch side, mark the half point, which would be 2 1/8 for this inside pieces. Then you will take your piece and again do your 2 angle cuts by placing the pencil mark and the bottom corner onto the cut line of your trimmer and cutting your triangle shapes that will go in the inside of your box. Next, dry fit your triangle pieces that go on the inside and trim down a little bit if you need to make sure that they fit inside. And then you will take glue. I'm just trimming about, not quite 1/8 of an inch off the bottom. It makes it a little easier to get it in there. So you'll probably want to trim yours the same way. So now that it fits, I'm going to take my glue and glue it to the inside of the box base and into the inside of the lid. If you want a tree shape on your box, like I did, you can either freehand cut it, or if you have a die that fits a tree shape in a die, you can cut that with a die or your cutting machine. So I'm going to cut mine out of a rectangle of scrap of paper. It's about 5 inches long by 3.5 inches wide, and I'm going to lightly fold it in half. I don't want to make a crease, so you just want to keep that loose there in the middle. And I'm just going to start at the bottom and cut like a little half a rectangle shape for the trunk, and then I'm going to start cutting branches. I'll put about 4 on it like I did on the other one. No two trees are going to turn out the same, so you just kind of cut little angle cuts, not too far into the fold, and the bottom one towards the trunk should be longer, and then the others gradually shorter as you go up to the top of the tree. This one I didn't make my branches quite as thick as I did on the other tree, so like I said, every time you cut a tree it's going to be a little bit different. But if you have a die cut machine with a Christmas tree die that's about the same size, or if you have a Cricut or some machine that you want to cut it on, that's fine. I just like the freehand look on mine, so I'm going to cut that out, and then I take it, the patterned one, and glue it onto cardstock. I'm just deciding here if I want the bows or the Santas, and I really like the Santas, so it's going to look a little different, I think, but I'm going to go ahead and go with that. So I'm going to glue this down to some cardstock. I'm going to use the craft. After I glued the finished piece onto my box, I wish I had used red, so you might take that into consideration. Do you want red or maybe green behind it? So I apply glue to the back side of the tree, place it down on the scrap of cardstock, and then cut out around the edges again, leaving a slight border. Now I'm just applying glue to the back of my tree, and I'm going to place it down onto the lid of my box. Make sure it's on the lid side, which is the piece that lifts up off of the base. Then punch or cut out a star and add to the top of your tree. Now it's time for the fun part, decorating your little Christmas tree box. I'm going to be using some of the Jingles, Authentiques Jingles die cut elements that I punch out. I'm going to use one of the sayings and make a banner across the bottom of the base of my tree. And then I'm going to add several different Christmas colored buttons from my stash that I've had left over from past seasons of Christmas decorating and crafting. And then I will add ribbon to the side of the lid all the way around, And then at the top, I'm going to attach a bow that I've created out of Christmas ribbons and twine. I will use hot glue to attach the bow because it's on the point and it's a little harder to stay attached. All my other elements, the buttons and banners and things, I attach with my art glitter glue. So that will finish this project. It'll be all decorated, ready for gift giving this holiday season. And I hope that you will make one or two or three or more. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. And I want to thank you so very much for watching. And I hope you've been enjoying your crafting time for this Christmas in July with Country Craft Creations. And again, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.